All right. So we're starting a new Perek, the 16th Perek, Daf Kuf Tet Vav. And we start with the Mishnah. The case that we're talking about is if you realize that your house is on fire, Barmenan, on Shabbat, what do? You can't put out the fire. I mean, if it's life-threatening, and so nowadays we would call anything like that life-threatening because it can spread. So we're always going to call the fire department. So in practice, always call the fire department. But we're talking about a case where out in the middle of nowhere, it's not going to affect anyone. It's not dangerous. So you can't just put out the fire because it's a melacha, right? If it's not endangering anybody. But what you can do is save some things, right? So you want to run into the house. Obviously, if it's not dangerous to see, you're going to the other part of the house, back door, and you save some items. What are you allowed to save, and what can you not save? Now, if you're going into your own courtyard, then that would be much easier. Could you just, go into that? But if you're talking about a place where there's no eruv, and now by saving things you're carrying, even then, there are some things that one can save. Okay? And so this Mishnah, we're going to get to other things like food and clothing. This Mishnah is talking about holy objects, scrolls. So it says, Kol kitvei hakodesh masilin otan mipenei hadelecha. Any scrolls that are sacred writings, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketubim, you can save them from a fire on Shabbat and take them out into the courtyard, even though there's no eruv. Ben shekorin bahen, or ben she'en korin bahen. This is an interesting phrase. Whether those that you can read or those that you don't read. Now, what does it mean? Those that you read and don't read. Don't we read everything? Right? Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. What else is it talking about? So we're going to see. This means Torah, Nevi'im we read on Shabbat. We read Parashat HaShavua, we read Haftarah, but Ketuvim we don't read. Okay, and we're going to explain why that the rabbis made a prohibition, says don't read Ketubim on Shabbat because they want to encourage people to come to the Bet Midrash to hear the lecture from the rabbi and hear the shiur, where he'll learn some halachot and musad and different things. And everybody loves learning, sitting and reading Tehillim, Mishleh, some Iyov, right, some Megillot, and it's beautiful, wonderful thing to do. But on Shabbat, when people have time, the rabbi said, don't read those books, right? As holy as they are, so that they'll come to the Bet Midrash and learn some halacha. Okay, that's the
exception.
Now
an exception.
Now, right. Okay, so whether you read them on Shabbat or not, all Nevim Ketuvim, you can save them on Shabbat if the house is on fire. Now, this is a side phrase saying, even if they're written in any other language, they need to be put into Geniza. So in those days, they would sometimes write a Sefer Torah or books of Nevi'im and Ketuvim in other languages, like Greek, right? Everybody agrees that you can write a Sefer Torah in Greek and it's considered a kosher Sefer Torah because the Septuagint, the Targum HaShivrim, right, that was done in prophetic inspiration, and that was considered also a holy status. Other languages is a machloket, whether you're allowed to write a Sefer Torah or other books, Nevi'im and Ketubim, in other translations. We'll see that machloket. So you see that nowadays is not the only time when there's a lot of Jews that may be very pious and want to learn Torah but don't know Hebrew. And so in those days also in Egypt, people knew Greek but they didn't know Hebrew. So they were written in different languages. What is the status of those sefarim in other languages? So here the Mishnah says, Tonin Geniza. If they are worn out, you have to put them in Geniza. You have to store them away and treat them with respect. It's not clear here is what's the connection between Kol Kitveh that you save from the fire and these that are written in other languages. If it's written in a different language, then you also save it from a fire, or only Geniza, right? You see that's a little bit unclear in the Mishnah. So that's what we're going to have to parse out. Okay, now going back to these books that you said we don't read them, namely Ketubim, why don't we read them? Because then people will not come to the Bet HaMidrash. So the rabbis considered the study in the Bet HaMidrash, the halachot and musad that they'll get there, to be more important than reading Ketubim, on Shabbat at least. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Very interesting and very rich. A lot there to unpack. Let's see. Itemar hayu ketubim targum o bechol lashon. Rav Huna amar en masilin otan pnei deleka. Rav Chisda amar masilin otan mipnei deleka. So now we have a machloket between two Amoraim, Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, regarding that case that would be ambiguous according to the Mishnah. If they have something that's written in Aramaic translation, or any other language, but they're holy books of scripture. What is that status? We know the Mishnah says you have to put them in Genizah, but can you save them? That's not so clear. So Rav Huna says, no, and you have to let them burn, right? They're of lower status, and so you can't violate a Shabbat. We're talking about violating Shabbat on a lower level. You're taking out into a place that doesn't have eruv, so it will be like a drabanan. But you can't violate Shabbat to save books that are not written in Hebrew. Rav Chisda says, no, yeah, they're very important. These are similar status to regular books, Sefarim written in Hebrew, books of Ketubim, even though they're in different languages. So you save them, and for sure you put them in Genizah. Everybody agrees with that. Okay, so this is machloket. We're going to discuss this for a while, different proofs and disproofs. Now we had there's a machloket in Masechet Megillah. It says, can you read these books or not? These books that are written in other languages. And one opinion there says, yes, you can read them, which may mean either you can read them privately, or maybe even mean that you can read them publicly. In other words, you could read them in front of a kahal. So according to that opinion, for sure, you save them, right? Because they're holy objects. You use them for public reading. So 100%. We're not even talking about that opinion. But we're talking about, according to the other opinion, that say you don't read them. Then what? So within that, Rav Huna says, and matzilin, if you're not allowed to read them, then so that's why you shouldn't save them, right? What are you gonna save them for if you can't read them? Rav Chisda says you do save them from a fire, even though you're not allowed to read them. Still, they have some status of holiness, and it'll be a bizayon. You're gonna sit back, watch these things burning down. You have your English translation of Tanakh, and it's going to just be burnt. It's a bizayon. So even though you can't read them, so still we have a machloket whether you can save them. All right.
Rabbi, so let's say you have in your house a chamisha chumashei Torah. It's the same thing as a Torah, but of course we don't read it as a Torah.
Right.
But it has chumash.
Right.
It's 5 books. I don't know if we have to save it officially. It's not as a Torah, but it's just
right. That's a great question. I would assume that would be no. But the things we're talking about here, since they didn't have printing, everything was handwritten. So this would be, imagine a Sefer Torah written in English, but on klaf, right, with dior, by a sofer, right, and an official klaf, okay, right. So what would be the status of that, right? That would be interesting. There's different possibilities about exactly how they did it. They didn't write in English, but they wrote in Greek, right? We know they did that. Did they write in Greek language and Greek letters, right? Or it's possible that they wrote Hebrew in Greek letters, or Greek in Hebrew letters, right? Like Judeo-Arabic is Arabic in Hebrew letters, right? So different ways that these could have been written. So we're talking about that might have had, because written on cloth, could have had the status of actually being read. Okay.
Rabbi, you just mentioned the Greek. I remember that the Greek is actually one of the languages that you're allowed to read the Torah in.
Correct.
That would affect this machloket, because then according to Rav Huna, you would save a Greek Sefer Torah.
Correct. It would seem that because everybody agrees that a Greek Torah is kosher Torah. So it seems that everyone would agree that could be. We're talking about other languages besides Greek. I think that's correct. Okay, good. So Tenan, now we're going to question Rav Huna. Rav Huna said you can't save it from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, we just read it. Kol kitvei kodesh masilin otan mipnei deleka ben shekorin bahen ben she'en korin bahen af al pi sheketubim bechol lashon. Right there, it's right here. So it means even if you not allowed to read it, even if it's other languages, we're reading this as part of the same sentence. Not a clear way to put the period, right? But if you put a period after this, All scripture you're allowed to save from fire, whether you read them or don't read them, even if they're in other languages, right? Period. And also to Geniza, also you have to put in Geniza. So there you go. It's explicit that you have to save them. So this is a strong question against the Rav Huna, who says you don't save them when they're in other languages. My love, shekorin bahem nevi'im, v'shen korin bahem ketuvim. Af al pi shekatuim b'chol lashon, de lo nitnu likrot bahem. V'kotani masilin. V'tiyubta de Rav Huna. So we're assuming, we're trying to parse this out, right? This is how we explained it. The ones that we read are Nevi'im. The ones that we don't read are Ketuvim. The ones that are written in any language, we can't, that's among the things that we can't, not allowed to read. And still says you save them. And this would be a refutation of Rav Huna. But don't worry, Rav Huna is going to save himself. Amalach Rav Huna could say, again, Rav Huna is not here, Rav Huna just said that, we are now arguing for him. He could say, V'tizbera, really, is that how you understand the Mishnah? Is that where you put the period? Look at the rest of the Mishnah. Teunin Geniza. You have to put them in Geniza. Now, if you put the period where we just did, it wouldn't make sense. Hashta asule masilinan. Geniza mibae. If it just said you're allowed to save them, do you have to tell me that you have to put them in Geniza? You just said that these things you're allowed to violate Shabbat and save them. That's how holy they are. Well, obviously, then, they're holy enough that you can't throw them out and destroy them on purpose, right? If they don't in Geniza, that means you take them, you rip them up, you burn them, you throw them in the garbage. So you don't have to say Te'onin Geniza if that's the case. So that reading is not a good reading of the Mishnah. Ella, Rav Huna metares l'ta'ameh. Rav Chisda metares l'ta'ameh. Rather, each Amorah can explain the Mishnah according to their view. How? Rav Huna metares l'ta'ameh. Ben shekorin bahen nevi'im. Okay, we said that. Ben she'en korim bahem, books that we don't read on Shabbat specifically, is Ketuvim, because you should go to the shiur. Bamem b'dimei mamurim, in which case is this true? Sheketuvim b'lashon hakodesh. When it's written in Hebrew, that's when you save those books. Torah, Nevi'im, or Ketuvim. Even though you can't read them, you still save them if they're written in Hebrew. Ava b'chol lashon en masilin. Other languages, no, he has to add in those words. Right, but he's assuming them. Afilu hachi, geniza ba'u, but they still need geniza, right? So this is not a bad reading. You can fit it in this way. Just put the period another place. You have to save everything, whether you read them like Torah Nevi'im or you don't read them like Ketuvim, period, right? Now, another statement, even if they're written in other languages, you need geniza. You don't save them, but they need geniza. Okay, so the reads smoothly that way. That's how Rav Huna would read it. And how about Rav Chisda? How is he going to read it? Ben shekorim bahem, the ones that you read are Nevi'im. Ben shekorim bahem, that's Ketuvim. Af al pi sheketuvim b'chol lashon, name masilin. He puts the period after, like we did before. You save even if it's in any other language. And v'hachi ka'amad umekek shelahen te'onin geniza. And why does it add another statement that says you also have to save? You have to put them in geniza. That's talking about when they're decayed. That any of these books, whether they're in Ketuvim or whether in other languages, if they got decayed, then you have to bury them, even though they're just even if it's just the little pieces of them, and you might think, it looks like garbage. No, it's still you don't. So it's still a chidush, and that way we resolve the Mishnah according to both opinions. Okay. Here's a couple of pictures. This is a section of Bible in Coptic. That's ancient Greek language. Okay, this might have been used by Christians, not necessarily by Jews. But translation. This we're going to see. This is a copy of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think this is Sefer Vayikra, in ancient Hebrew script called Ketav Ivri, right? Paleo Hebrew. This is the original script of the Torah. Right, in Matan Torah, this is what the Luchot look like. This is these letters, and it was still being used even centuries later. And we found pieces of it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're going to talk about that. And here's a picture of the Torah in Greek, or Judeo-Greek. Okay, so that's really fascinating, right? All during Second Mitzvah. So these things really existed, and so these were real questions about the status of these various items. Okay, now metibeh. We have a question. We're going to ask some questions, especially against Rav Huna. There was more machmir. Hayu kitubim targum ubechol lashon masilin otan mipenei hadeleka. We have a baraita that says if they're written in Aramaic or any language, you save them from the fire.
Those aren't she just said.
He just said if in any language you don't save them from the fire. So Baraita is a higher levels from Tanaim. So Tiyubta de Rabuna, Tiyubta de Rabuna, right? So this is a rejection of Rabuna. Amalach Rabuna, no, hold on, he can save the day. Hai Tanasaba nitinu likrot bahen. That Baraita is going according to the Tanah that said you are allowed to read those books. Remember, we said there's a machloket whether you can read those books or not. So that Braita is going to that. I follow the other opinion that say you're not allowed to read those books. Okay, so good. He saved himself. Tashima, you get to be.
He's saying the Nitinu Likrot Bahem as referring to written in different languages. But before we translated Nitinu Likrot is the distinction between Ketubim and Torah and Nevi'im. So are we like switching right now? Is Rav Huna switching his explanation of what Nitinu Likrot means?
Yeah, he's saying that our Mishnah, it follows the opinion that says you cannot read the ones in another language. And then on Shabbat, you also cannot read Ketubim. But during the week, you can read Ketubim, but not in other languages.
All right, so
this Baraita is going according to the opinion that you cannot read things written in other languages. But he says the Mishnah follows the other opinion. That's what I was following.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. The word that phrase she'en korin bahen refers to different things, and I think sometimes it refers to public reading and sometimes to private reading. Okay, so Tashema hayu ketubim giftirit. מדית, עברית, אלמית, יוונית, אף על פי שלא ניתנו לקרות בהן, מסילין אותן מפני הדלקה. Now we have yet another Baraita that says, if a scroll of Tanakh is written in Coptic, that ancient Egyptian, a Median language, Ketav Ivri, the ancient, it's in Hebrew, but ancient script, the Samaritans continue, even until today, to use that script. But the rabbis did not like that. Elamite or Greek, these can be rescued from the fire on Shabbat, even though they can't be read. So you see that they say they can't be read, and yet they can't, right? They can't be read, but they can be saved. So, and again, this is Tiyub Tad Rabuna. Malach Rabuna Tanaehi. No, it's a machloket Tanaim. The Tanya. Hayu Ketubim Targum ubechol lashon masilin otam mipnei hadileka. Right? This itself is a machloket of the Tanaim. The first opinion says you do save them. Okay, that would go like Rav Chisda. Rav Huna says I follow Rabbi Yosef. He says you do not follow works that are in translation from the fire. That's what I was following, and so therefore that Baraita goes according to the other opinion. It looks like it's a minority opinion, but okay, at least it's a Tanaitic opinion, and he follows that.
Is this the same source as the beginning of the paragraph?
This one here?
Yeah, it's the same exact word.
This says right, it's the exact same words.
It says vichol instead of ubchol.
Right. So that's a good way. It's hard to know if it's a separate Baraita that has only one opinion, or part of a Baraita, but then they should have quoted the rest of it up here. You know? So my guess would be it's another Baraita that has only that opinion. And then they're saving this one to the end. Well, they save one that has an answer to the end because they want to get a chance to bring in all the questions, right? If they solve it too quickly, then they don't get a chance to bring in all the other Baraitot and all the other back and forth. So they kind of save it. So that would be my guess, but
ultimately we're just saying it's Tanaim, and Rav Huna and Rav Chisda are just going by different ones.
Right, that's it. That's the answer. Correct. Okay. Now this is Rabbi Yosef, the one who said that we do not save books that are in translation. We have the story that he said. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Maaseh be'aba halafta. We all heard of Rabbi Yosef bar halafta. Right, very important Amora. So this is Rabbi Yosef, the son of Chalafta. He's telling a story about his father, Abba Chalafta. That's what he calls him, right? There's, by the way, a very good halacha. You're not allowed to say your father's name, right? But if you say his title, if you say Abba, and then you say his name, that's okay, right? So you learn that from here. Abba Chalafta. My father, one time, Shalach etzel Rabban Gamliel b'Rabbi leTiberia. One time he went to Rabban Gamliel in Tiberias. U'mesar she'aya yoshev al shulchano shel Yochanan HaNazuf u'biado Sefer Yob Targum. So he's sitting there in Tiberias, and he's reading. In his hands, he has a book of Yob in translation, an Aramaic translation of Yob. U'korebo, and he's sitting and reading it. Seems like he's reading it in public. He's teaching Sefer Yob. Amar lo. So my father told Rabban Gamliel, this is Rabban Gamliel who was from Yavne. Zachur ani b'Rabban Gamliel abi abicha. And he says, I remember that your grandfather, Rabban Gamliel, he's talking to Rabban Gamliel of Yavne. His grandfather was Rabban Gamliel Hazaken. They had the same name. They're named like we do, like the kids after their fathers. He lived during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, just Rabban Gamliel Hazaken. I remember that he was standing up on the stairs of the Bet HaMikdash. And they brought him an Aramaic translation of Eyob. He took it, someone gave him the scroll, and he gave it to the builder, and he said, bury this in the foundation. In other words, Geniza, right? Put it away. This cannot be read. Right? And he told him to put it in Geniza. And sure enough, and he did. Now, Rabbi Yosef, this means, and he did. The Rabban Gamliel, the grandson, said, oh, really? That's true? Oh, I never heard that story about my grandfather. Thank you for telling me. And right away, the grandson, the Rabban Gamliel Ibn, put it in Geniza, right? So you see that Rabbi Yosef is telling the story to prove his opinion that you are not allowed to read these books. You have to put them in Geniza. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Areba Sheltit Kafu Alav. So there's one tradition that they put some whole pail of mortar of cement on top of it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Sheteti Shabbat Badavar. Rabbi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who was the grandson of Rabban Gamliel of Yavne, said, I don't think that part of the story is true. The rest is true. But this part that they put cement on it, that doesn't make sense. That they used cement in the Bet HaMikdash, it wasn't one of the building materials they used. They used lime and other things, but they didn't use cement. Furthermore, can you destroy it actively? Right? Even books that you're not allowed to read, Beginizah means you put it away, you bury it, with respectfully. You don't you bury it in cement. Rather, you put it in a neglected place, old store, old closet, or down underneath something, and it'll decay on its own. You don't do it purposely. Okay. So now we ask, Man Tana'eh. Who are the Tanaim that disagree with this halacha? We know the Rabbi Yosef agrees with them, but who disagrees? Ilema Tanakama de Rabbi Yosef, the Dilma behakami palge, morsa bar nitenu likrot behen, or morsa bar lo nitenu likrot behen. Now, if you have this Tanakama before of that baraita didn't make it clear that you have to save them. It just says you save them. But why? Why do you save them? Maybe because you're allowed to read from them, right? And we saw before that the Rav Huna says you cannot read from them, and therefore you cannot save them. And so that would be Rabbi Yosef. But Rabbi Yosef, it's not clear here if you're allowed to read them or not allowed to. It just says you can't save them. But
maybe you could say this because you could save them. Now you can read them.
Right, that would make sense because you can save them, now you can read them. But we said before that this whole machloket is only according to the opinions that says you can't read them.
Why would I be allowed to say it? Because of bizayon.
Because of bizayon, right. So who is that Tanakama exactly? That's our question. Maybe it's talking about the Rabbi Yosef, and the other Tana is the one who talked about books written in the Coptic language. According to that Tana, even books that may not be read or rescued, whereas Rabbi Yosef says that they are not rescued. So, right, we had this baraita that mentioned that language. Where is it? No, this is a story. Here, this one. This Tashma, if it was written Gifterit, all these languages, as this says explicitly that they are not, that you cannot read them, yet you can save them. Okay, so that's it. That's the other Tana that would be that Avuna would be the opposite of Rav Huna, who agrees that you cannot read them, but still you cannot save them. Well, that would make sense. That would be like Rav Chisda. Okay, so it's good that we brought this baraita. So each one of these baraitot are a slightly different combination. We got to put them all out on the chart and see them more clearly.
Well, let's go back for a second. What's the reasoning for the other person who says you can't say that, but didn't? But why would that? What was that said?
Yeah.
So why would it?
Rav Huna said you can't save them.
So what's the reasoning for that?
Because they're not holy. They're not holy books. You can't read them. You can't.
It's like this.
Right. No, not because in the right. No bizayon. Yeah. There's just it's like a commentary, a printed book. I mean, it's not. We're not happy that they're being burnt, but they don't have the same status. You can't. Not going to violate Shabbat for it, right? Because there's other considerations. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. We have a baraita. Berachot. This is very, very, very interesting. Very important baraita here. So blessings. In other words, a sidur, right? They didn't have a full sidur back then, but they did write down, let's say the Amidah or some section of blessings that they had in written format. Or kameya, an amulet has pisukim and holy names, has different holy things in it. Even though it has God's name in it, Yud Ke Vav Ke, and as other things of Torah matters, and this will answer your question, right? You don't save them. Right? Them, and even God's name that's in them. Okay, you can't don't save them. Because they're not part of the Sefer Torah. They don't have that status of holiness. Because of this, they say that those who write down berachot, it's like they're burning Torah. Why is it like they're burning Torah? Because if there should be a fire, and I guess fires, happen every so often, then you're not going to save them. So now you're causing them to be burnt. So this is why you should not write down. The only thing that you write down is Torah Nivim Ketuvim. You should not write down other things like Torah Shebe'al Peh, Berachot, right? All other things, just memorize. If you write them down, then they may come to be burned. Now we have an amazing story. Ma'aseh v'echad shekoteh b'sayedan ba'u b'hodi'u et Rabbi Yishmael. So some guy he was writing down a sidur, whatever he was writing down. He's writing mishnayot, and they came and they informed Rabbi Yishmael. This guy is writing down Torah Shebe'al Peh. So he went, let's go see what's going on there. Rabbi Ishmael is going up the stairs to check him out. Natal Tomos Shel Berachot v'Shike'an b'Sefer Shel Mayim. He took a bundle of berachot that he had written and he put it in a basin of water to hide them, right? To conceal. He was afraid he's going to get in trouble. This is like, people they're dealing drugs, right? And then the police knock. So they come before the police come. They're throwing everything in the toilet bowl, right? Ubalashon hazeh amar lo Rabbi Ishmael gadol onesh hacharon min harishon. Ishmael walks in. He sees the all the berachot, these parchment in the bucket of water. He says this is worse than the first thing you did, right? It's bad. The reason why you shouldn't write them down is because then they may be destroyed. And what did you do to cover up your action? You actively destroy them, right? So very often when people try to cover up, the cover up is worse than the original sin that they did. Okay, so here you learn that you do not save regular things that are written that are not scripture written in a proper way. You don't save them. Okay, good. Along those lines, what else do you save or not save? היו כתובים בסם ובסקרה ובקומוס ובקנקנטום בלשון הקודש, מסילין אותם מפני הדלקה, או אין מסילין. Let's say you have something that's written in a scroll, like a Sefer Torah, but not with the proper ink. Our Sefer Torah are all written with diyor, which is very durable, kosher ink. But there's all these other ones, all these other types of ink that, right, we actually saw them before in Masechet Shabbat. We saw that these are examples of inks that are permanent enough. If you write 2 letters on Shabbat with these inks, chayav mitah, okay? But they're not as durable, they're not as official writing as writing with diyor. So if you have a Sefer Torah and it's written in these other types of inks, what's the law? Is it considered like a Sefer Torah and you save it or not?
So the question is it a Sefer Torah?
Right, that would be a related question.
Yeah.
Well, we have to ask according to both the opinion that says in general that we do save other books, like other languages, and according to the one who says that we don't save. According to one that says we don't save other books, this is Rav Huna, right, who says is Machmir. He says if it's written in Aramaic or other languages, we do not save. These are after all Hebrew, so these we would save. Or we could say, according to Rav Chisda, who says we do save things in other languages. Fine, you're writing it in Greek or in English, but you're writing it properly with diyor. So that's good. That's a real like a Sefer Torah. But these are not going to last long. They're not good writing. So you might say no, which is a really amazing thing that you would save the English one in diyor, but not the one that's in Hebrew because it's written in this copper sulfate or something. So that was the question that Resh Galuta, that he's the head of Galut. He's the head of the Jews in Babel. He asked Rabba Bar Huna, and he answered in and Masilin. You do not save these Sefer Torah written in other ink. Masilin, hold on. Rav Hamnuna, another Amora, he has a baraita where it says you do save these Sefer Torah written in other inks. Amalei Tanya. Oh, if it's a baraita, then I agree. I didn't know it was a baraita. I was just assuming that it's okay. I was making, I was using my sevara. I didn't know, but you say a baraita, so then I agree. So you are allowed to save them. My Tanya, what is this baraita is referring to? Amar Bashe ki de Tanya. En ben sefarim leMegillah, ella she'asefarim nichtabim bechol lashon uMegillah ad sheteh ketubah ashurit ala sefer ubadiyo. The baraita is regarding in the Masechet Megillah. It says there's no difference between a Sefer Torah and the Megillat Esther. They have the same laws, except that Sefer Torah are written in any language. But Megillat Esther has to be written in Ketav Ashurit, on parchment, and has to be written with diyor. So there you go. Only Megillah has to be written that way. And in some ways, it's more chamor. But other ones, other books of Tanakh do not have. They can be written in other ink. So there you go. And even if it's written in other ink, it's a kosher Sefer Torah. Therefore, for sure, you have to save it. Okay. So that answers your question. Okay, very good. ספר תורה שאין בו ללקט 85 אותיות, כגון פרשת ויהי בנשוא אהרון, מסילין אותה מפני דלקה, או אין מסילין אותה, או אין מסילין. You have to have a Sefer Torah that's so worn out, so faded, that only 85 letters are left.
That's not kosher.
It's not kosher anymore. The question is, even if it's not kosher, does it still have the status of a Sefer Torah that you would save, right? Even a pasul Sefer Torah still has holiness of a Sefer Torah. So now where they get 85 letters? Why is that the minimum? Because in Vayibin Saron in Bimidbar, in Parashat Naso, right, you have the upside down nuns, right? You ever see that in the Torah? There's these upside down nuns that serve as brackets. And you have this section. Whenever the Aron would go out into battle, when they would travel, this is what they would say. When it comes back from battle, they would say, return, Hashem return, right? Because Hashem is in the ark. We say this every time that we take out the Torah and we bring back the Torah. We say Shubah, right? Hashem revot al Israel. By the way, that's why Rabbi Shammah tells us that when let's say you bring the Torah back on after Kirat Sefer Torah on Shabbat, right? And then you have the rabbi speak. So Rabbi Shammah always says, first say Shubah Adonai Rabot Israel, right? And then the rabbi speak. Why? Because this you should say this while the Torah is being put back in that on. That's the purpose, right? And whereas most places they don't know that, and they delay this and they say this to Sukkim after the rabbi speaks.
Most synagogues are Shetzion and
Yeah.
that's how it's done.
Right. I know. I'm trying to think. In Spanish Portuguese synagogue, they do sing this before the rabbi's speech. So they do it properly, and they have a whole ceremony about it. So that's the right way to do it. Okay. Anyway, the point for us is that these upside down nuns bracket off the section, and we're about to see this is considered its own sefer. A sefer by itself. You know that there's five books of Chumash? No, not true. Actually, according to this, there are 7 books of Chumash, because this is its own sefer. Everything before it is 1, everything after is 1, and then the other 4 sefarim, that makes 7. So since, according to this opinion, this is its own book, and this has 85 letters in here, you can count them. So 85 letters is the minimum to make a complete book. Right. So that's the minimum. So therefore, we're asking if a Sefer Torah has 85 letters, not necessarily these, any 85 letters, that's considered the minimum to be a book. Like Vayibin Saron, do you save it or do you not save it? Why are you asking 85 letters anywhere? Ask about this. Let's say I have just this is left, and the rest of the Sefer Torah is worn out. How about that? Why don't you ask about that? Techaser parashat Vayibin Soa kamim ba'ali techavandit behazkarot afagav delet be-85 otiyot masilin. No, we're not asking that because it has Hashem's name in it, right? It says Kuma Hashem. So even if it has less than that, just Hashem's name from a Sefer Torah, you have to save it. Again, Hashem's name, if it was only Berachot, you wouldn't save it. Right. But if it wasn't a Sefer Torah, just you have those 4 letters left, you have to save it. So that's why we didn't ask about this paragraph itself. But we're asking about another paragraph that is 85 letters, and it doesn't have Hashem's name. Would we save it or not? Right. I'm sorry, I think I missed a line. What I'm asking is, Sefer Torah she'en bo lelaket, that does not have enough to compile 85 letters. Mai male en masilin. He says, no, you do not rescue it. Okay. If it does not have 85 letters, you do not rescue it. If it has 85 letters, then you do rescue it.
I'd say it doesn't matter.
It has the 85 letters or Hashem's name.
Or
right. If it has neither of those, then that's it. It's not. Then it's even not nothing. Then you don't save it. Itibe targum shekatabo mikra shekatabo targum. Let's say I have something that's Aramaic that I wrote it in Hebrew. Now, there's a lot of places in the Tanakh that are Aramaic, like Sefer Daniel, right? A lot of it is in Aramaic. I wrote it, instead of Aramaic, I wrote it in Hebrew. Or something that's Mikra in Hebrew, and I wrote it in Aramaic. Or Chatav Ivrit, that ancient writing. Masim mipnei deleka, you do save them. It's the question. You save them. ואין צריך לומר תרגום שבעזרא, שבניאל, ושבדניאל, ושבתורה. And of course, you save any targum, that Aramaic sections, and Ezra, Daniel, and in the Torah. Targum Shabbat Ma'anihu. By the way, where is there Aramaic in the Torah? There is one. Yegara Sahaduta. Right? Where is that? You remember? This is the place where Lavan and Yaakov make a berit, right? And Yaakov calls it Gal'ed. And then Lavan calls it in Aramaic, the translation, Yegara Sahaduta, right? Sahaduta meaning Ed. You got a place, the place of testimony. So we have a question on this. Even though, right, the point of bringing this whole thing is to say that even if it is, even though those two words, Targum in the Torah, you still save it, right? All these things, Masilim, right? And if it's written in Hebrew and Aramaic, you save even in the words of the Torah. And the Torah is only 2 words. So that means you save 2 words, right? So you see, there's a question on what we just said. We just said that if it's less than 85 words, you don't save it. Here, there's 2 words, and yet you save it. That's the question. The answer is Kitanyahi lashlim. We meant that if that is that completes 85 letters. In other words, if you have 75 letters, and then you also have Yegara Sahaduta. What is this? Right? There's 9 letters. Okay, you have 76 letters. And you have this also, then it comes to 85, right? So then you would save it. But Yegara Sahaduta by itself, you wouldn't save. That's not a question. Okay. Another question. These 85 letters, are they all one place? They have to be one paragraph of 85 letters? Or even scattered all over the Torah? 1 letter here, 2 letters there.
It's not words.
It's not words, right? That makes sense. Yeah, it would make sense if they won't be in one place. Right. But when it wasn't clear from those sources before, Ravuna Amar Mechunasot, they have to be in one place, as you said. Rav Chisda Amar Afilu Mefuzarot, even if they're all over the place. So you see again here, Rav Chisda is more mekel, and Ravuna is more machmir. Metzibeh, we have a question about that. In Sefer Torah Shebala, Yesh bo lelaket 85 otiyot, kegon Parashat Vayben Soaron Masilin. Vim lav en masilin. Tiyubta de Ravuna. We have this baraita that says a Sefer Torah that's worn out. If there's enough to gather together 85 letters, but it says you have to gather them together, then you do save them.
So no matter what, really,
so even no matter where they are, this seems to be a proof for Rav Chisda and against Ravuna, who says they have to all be in one place. Tiyubta de Ravuna. Tilgemar Rav Chisda aliba de Ravuna betevot. Oh. Rav Ravuna didn't have an answer, but Rav Chisda says, "Oh, I'll help you out." See what a nice friend he was. Even though he disagreed with that opinion, he still wanted to help him out. And he said that's talking about that they are near each other in the form of words. That they make up words. In that case, Rav Huna agrees that sacred book. And I only disagree with the letters are isolated. In other words, the letters are all over the place. That really doesn't make anything up. But what about the words are together, but the words are isolated? There's enough, right? There's enough
words. It's like 85 letters, but you have a lot of words all scattered.
Right. Each one is a full word, but the words are scattered. At least the word is a thing. It can be, it can stand alone. It has meaning. And so that's how we can solve it, that this Baraita is talking about, where there are words. And that's... but if it was letters, then that's what he was talking about when he says you don't save it. Okay, we can stop here. And tomorrow we'll have a little midrash about those pesukim that are in between the brackets. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining.
I would say something